Hello everyone, welcome back to a Megon 2 Electric Boogaloo. Today I want to talk about Nelson Piquet and Lewis Hamilton. If you don't follow Formula 1 racing, you will not know those names. If you do, you'll know exactly who they are. Nelson Piquet is a 68-year-old Brazilian who won 3 world titles in 1981, 1983 and 1987. He won 23 races and had 60 podiums. He is worth $200 million. A man who admitted, after an accident in 1987, his depth perception was vastly inhibited, yet he still went on to win races during that time, up until his retirement in fact, in 1991, well from Formula 1 anyway. Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time Formula 1 world champion. He is a bit of an activist concerning Black Lives Matter. Whether he's any good, I have said on multiple occasions, is entirely up to history and one's subjective opinion with regards to the fact that Mercedes did hold a monopoly for a few years. Enough that his teammate, Bottas, was unable to stay in front of him if it meant Lewis could win. I don't agree with the politics aspect, but it is quite common in Formula 1 for a preferential treatment system to exist. Understandably so, I know. But in some instances, Bottas was faster and told not to overtake. Lewis Hamilton and Nelson Piquet are linked because of comments Nelson Piquet had made on a podcast, but I want to give you some context as to the kind of man that Nelson Piquet is. In 1988, Nelson Piquet made comments in a magazine about his rival Nigel Mansell, calling him an uneducated blockhead and that his wife was ugly. Fun fact, they became Williams' teammates eventually. Nelson Piquet used to refer to Ayrton Senna as gay and Enzo Ferrari as senile. As late as 2020, Nelson Piquet continued to refer to Ayrton Senna as gay. Ayrton Senna has been dead for a while, just considered poor taste. The man is very blunt, he always has been. He's very frank, he is very, in his mind, honest. So very recently, Nelson Piquet was trending on Twitter. And the reason why is because some footage from 2021 has resurfaced. This podcast took place in November of 2021. Nelson Piquet during this podcast was discussing the collision during the British Grand Prix between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen. Now, why would Nelson Piquet be remotely interested in this? Well, it's because Max Verstappen is dating his daughter. Max Verstappen is the current Formula 1 world champion. The full quote, I'm not going to read some of the words of. The full quote of what Nelson Piquet said is the following. The N-word put the car in the wrong way and didn't let the other driver swerve. The N-word put the car in the wrong way on the corner. It's because you don't know the curve. It's a very high curve. There is no way to pass 2 cars and there's no way you can put the car aside. He did Verstappen dirty. His luck was that only the other one was gone. The uproar is over the use of the N-word. Yes, even on this channel, I can't say that word regardless of any race involved. Remember, that word belongs to someone else. I find it fascinating that was said in November 2021 and has only now been noticed. I am not going to sit here and make excuses about his generation, perhaps cultural differences where certain words are acceptable and some are not. I know those are what people are using. I don't care. I'm not going to give an opinion in that way. I'm going to read some of the responses because some of that is important, and I think for the sake of context, people need to understand the perspective. People need to understand these things. Doesn't justify, so to any potential Lewis Hamilton stan, do calm your tits and have a biscuit. I am not going in on Lewis, nor am I taking Nelson Piquet's side. Shut up. So let us go through some of the responses on Twitter before we go to Lewis Hamilton and the FIA. The FIA is the governing body of Formula 1. Medium stop F1. I hope Nelson Piquet's car falls on his effing head. Ari, the Piquet family are boldly, unapologetically and publicly racist, and you think an apology from Nelson Piquet will be sincere and will fix things? Leo Holder, who the hell does Nelson Piquet think he is using that kind of language? What a pathetic excuse for a man. Charles Leclerc's Stan account. There is no reason Nelson Piquet had to use that language when talking about Lewis Hamilton and Silverstone 2021. Absolutely no reason and no excuse. So many of us had conversations about that race without using racial slurs. It's not hard. Name and shame Nelson Piquet. Laura, name and shame Nelson Piquet. His family is currently doubling down. Insist upon a paddock ban. The team must throw its weight behind Lewis fully, which is a retweet of Mercedes, who had said, "We condemn in the strongest terms any use of racist or discriminatory language of any kind. Lewis has spearheaded our sport's efforts to combat racism, and he is a true champion of diversity on and off track. Together we share a vision for a diverse and inclusive motorsport, and this incident underlines the fundamental importance of continuing to strive for a brighter future." I thought Toto Wolff wanted to get rid of him by the end of the season. And finally, moles. If you're trying to tell me Nelson Piquet said this about Lewis in the context of the rest of the interview, in the same loving way she used to say it, then you're out of your damn mind. Stop trying to excuse racism. Underneath are images from Rodrigo Piquet's Instagram account, which explains some context about how the family operates. And no, I'm not going to read that. There's a word I don't want to be saying. So how did Lewis Hamilton respond? Initially, he had seen a tweet from someone else saying, "What if Lewis Hamilton just tweeted, 'Who the fuck is Nelson Piquet?' then closed Twitter?" With Lewis Hamilton simply saying, "Imagine." Lewis Hamilton then did put out additional statements though. First of all, let's focus on changing the mindset. And it's more than language. These are archaic mindsets. They need to change and have no place in our sport. I have been surrounded by these attitudes and targeted my whole life. There has been plenty of time to learn. Time has come for action. This also is a bit of a shot at Bernie Ecclestone, who used to run the Formula 1 FIA thing. Reason why is because Bernie said he would, if he was in charge, ban people like Lewis Hamilton from taking the knee before a race began. A Formula 1 statement was put out and it said, "Discriminatory or racist language is unacceptable in any form and has no part in society. Lewis is an incredible ambassador for our sport and deserves respect." Adding, "His tireless efforts to increase diversity and inclusion are a lesson to many and something we are committed to at Formula 1. I've seen the word diversity used in a lot of tweets and a lot of statements from people. It's quite the buzzword. Actions speak louder than words and all that. And some words just make people roll their eyes. Not myself, just saying what does happen. And of course, if they do roll their eyes, they need to stop internalizing their racism. You should be ashamed of yourselves." Now, I probably should address the fact that there could be a cultural difference here. I had a little look at the African American Registry because there is a video on that site featuring a woman called Juliana Ramos, an Afro-Brazilian, who answered whether or not certain words, N-words, were acceptable in Brazil, and compared it to America and how that is handled. And where some do believe, including members of the Piquet family, that it is remotely acceptable, according to Juliana Ramos, the answer is no. It only is if you yourself have darker skin. If you have lighter skin, it is considered racism and is therefore under Brazilian law illegal. I will link the video down below. It's only a minute long, but I really don't want a copyright strike. I also don't want to use the words that Juliana used in case I get into trouble for that. Now, according to Philip Duncan Blue Checkmark, who is a Formula 1 correspondent for PA Sport, it is possible Nelson Piquet, if he does not apologize to Lewis Hamilton, he could have his paddock access revoked. Many, though, don't believe that any apology that he could give would ever be sincere, and that the ban should just be made anyway. I think Nelson Piquet's got a lot of money and has no reason to give so much as a flying fook, especially as his son, Nelson Piquet Jr., was involved in a scandal called Crashgate back in, well, many years ago actually, concerning Fernando Alonso. He doesn't really frequent Formula 1 as much as he used to after his son left and now races in Brazil. But I could be wrong.